So we're going to do find the area of a trapezoid. And this one's a little bit harder, so I wanted to show you an example, again, of where this formula comes from. So just in case you forgot, a trapezoid is a shape where two opposite sides are parallel, so like the bottom and the top for this case, and the other two are not parallel. So here's how someone discovered the formula to find the area of a trapezoid. What they did was they drew a line down the middle of the trapezoid, kind of like I did here, and they cut it. Then they flipped it over and they connected it. And when you do that, you get a really long parallelogram. So we know that the area formula for a parallelogram is base times height. So what we have to do, though, is add the bases together in this case. So we're still going to do base times height, but we have the big base and the little base that made the shape. So we have to add the big base and little base together. Then we multiply it by the height. But then, because we cut this in half, so it's really like only half of the height, so we have to divide our final answer by 2. So you don't have to remember where this came from. I just wanted to show you that this is how it was discovered. So they took a trapezoid, cut it in half, flipped it over, made a parallelogram. They know a parallelogram is base times height, so they basically did the same thing, only it's base plus base times the height divided by 2 because they cut it in half. So on your notes, let's fill this out together. To find the area of a trapezoid, add the small base with the big base. Sometimes they call it base 1 and base 2, so I'm going to write that over here just in case as well. So sometimes on a worksheet or on a test or something, it will say base 1 and base 2. It just means big base and small base. Doesn't really matter what order you add them in because of the commutative property. Multiply this answer by the height. Oh, I wrote it backwards in here. Okay. Multiply this by the height, or I actually put half of the height. So either way. So you can either do base plus base. I'll put big B for big base. So little base plus big base times the height, and then divide the entire thing by 2. Or what I did on your notes, which might be a little bit more confusing, but multiply so you do small base plus big base times half of the height. So, I mean, either way, you're going to get the same answer. I think this is way easier to understand. Add the two bases together, multiply by the height, divide the answer by 2. Okay? Remember that the base and the height always make a 90-degree angle, and this is what the formula looks like in general. Okay? So base 1 plus base 2, multiply it by the height, divide the answer by 2. So let's say I have an example. So you guys can just kind of draw this with me. So let's say these are my random numbers. Okay, I'm going to put this in here and put a 4. All right, so first of all, we have to figure out which one's the base, which one are the two bases. The two bases are always parallel to each other. So that would be these ones. So 6 plus 12. Okay. Times the height. The height has to make a 90-degree angle with the bases. So that's this one that I drew in. So the 10s are there just to throw you off. So the height is 4. And then we divide the entire answer by 2. So I'm going to put brackets around this. So 6 plus 12 is 18. 18 times 4 is 72. Divide the whole thing by 2. We get 36. So 36, and let's pretend I labeled it in inches. So 36 inches squared. Again, you're putting a 2 over it because even though there's a lot of numbers here involved, you're only multiplying 2 dimensions, the base and the height. So we're only dealing with 2 dimensions, even though it looks like there's a lot of numbers there. It's the two bases and then the height, and then the divided by 2, that's not really a dimension. So you're still putting a 2 over it. Okay? So let me give some for you to try.